Marcus has been through adversity, like me and many others, and his book, The Gift of Adversity, Overcoming Paralysis and Pain to Find Purpose. This is an incredible book, and it explains how we don't get to adversity, through adversity, straight to being able to appreciate all and have gratitude for the new abilities, the new tools that we picked up along the way. The reason I have Marcus here is because he wrote about the gift of adversity. And believe me, some people, when they see that, they want to just flip you off and say, what are you talking about? Mm-hmm. Right?
Oh, yeah.
So
even now I still get that.
Yeah. He's been on TED Talk, TEDx. He is an inspiration to me. And I want to share him with you and let him tell his story in the short time that we have, because you are such a gift in my life.
Oh, thank you, Shannon. You're amazing.
Would you please share with all my friends and family what you went through, what it was like being in the U.S. Army, getting ready to deploy, and I'll just let you tell the story.
Of course. I joined the Army at 38 years old, and there's a whole story before that, but basically in 2012, while preparing to deploy with the Army,
Actually, that backstory is really good.
Yeah, it tells a little bit in there. So you mean to talk about that for a second?
Yeah, I do. Because that was like, okay, what else could possibly go wrong?
So,
right?
Yeah, so I'm living in Atlanta. I'm 38 years old at that point. I'm married. I'm about to finish my doctorate in chiropractic. I have a year and a half left. I'm taking 25 hours of courses a week, so that's a lot. And I'm working my tail off as a bartender as well, because I'm trying to prepare for getting out of school and thinking about having a family. And what happened was I made school and work a priority, but I didn't make my marriage a priority. And because of that, my marriage fell apart. So my wife and I got divorced. And not long after that, my great uncle, who was a really important male role model for me, passed away. He was in the military. He was in special forces. He was in Vietnam. And he and my father were very strong influences in my life. So to have the divorce happen and then to have him pass away, it was just a very devastating combination. So I saw myself, I was burnt out emotionally and physically. I didn't feel like I wanted to keep going in school because I couldn't keep going. I didn't want to keep working as a bartender because I didn't even drink. I was just doing it for money. And while I love the people and I love the experience, it wasn't what my calling was. And after my great uncle's funeral, they had all the military regalia, the 21 gun salute. And I was pretty good. I was able to be kind of stoic up until the point that they played taps. And then I just kind of slowly fell apart and crumbled in front of everyone. And I remember telling him that I wanted to join the military, but I always had an excuse. Well, now I'm not married. I don't have any kids. I have no reason not to try to join. So that Monday I went down and talked to the recruiter to see what I could do. I walk in and they say, well, 35 is the age limit. So I immediately turn on my heels. I'm like, okay, I'll just move on to the next thing. But they said, no, wait a minute. Why are you wanting to do this? How old are you? And I told them, and we had a conversation, and the recruiter was very much surprised and sort of impressed with my motivation to want to get in. And I told him sort of the backstory, and he says, well, I maxed out the PT test right there. I did really well on the written test. My score was off the charts. So he said, well, you would be great in the military if you decide to do that. And so we signed a waiver and I got in. And 6 months later, I'm living the dream. I'm getting off the bus at Fort Benning at infantry school and getting yelled at and having a great time.
Right?
At 38 years old, yeah, I was older than all of my drill sergeants, and yeah, so that was a big test just in and of itself.
A little strange, I would think, as a man going in with younger guys.
Yeah, you've got guys half your age that you're competing against, trying to outrun or at least keep up with, or you're going without a whole lot of sleep or a lot of food, and there's a lot of pressure. But I look back on that now and I realize that that's what I needed in my life at that point. I needed something that was completely different, something that would challenge me, and something that would really shake me up. And that was definitely something that I embraced that challenge. And I was afraid that I might. The lingering fear was, what if I get injured? What if I can't finish? But after the first 2 weeks, because I prepare myself a lot physically, and after the first 2 weeks of the course, I realized, yeah, I'm not going to get hurt. And I used my mindset and my mentality to give me a huge advantage, because I knew that if my body could keep going, that my mind could push it. And that's what I did.
That's awesome. Because I think about, even as a woman getting into the Army, how difficult it is. There's, what do you call it? I'm at a loss of words, but we always imagine boot camp and going into the military. You're 18, you're 21, you're running away from home and your problems and everything. But at 38, to do this, you're going to be looked at. And I think even some of the younger guys, they would hope to just go, oh, how long is he going to last?
That's exactly it. They're like, what the hell are you doing here? And it's like
outcast. But there's a word, stereotype. Mm-hmm. The stereotype for going in and doing boot camp and everything. You don't see a 38-year-old man in there.
Not normally. And that's what I got a lot of. It was like, oh, did you make some bad life choices? And it's like, I needed that. And that's what led me to, if I hadn't done that, I never would be talking to you, right?
Right. So 2 years forward.
Yep. So
tell us what happened.
So in 2012, while preparing to deploy, I got a severe injury in my neck. I ruptured a disc in my neck, and it paralyzed me from the neck down. And I was told that if I didn't walk within a couple of days of the surgery, that I would never walk again. I died on the operating table twice, and I turned 40 years old, broke, divorced, bedridden, and paralyzed, wondering if I'd ever be able to walk or use my hands again. So it was a very low point.
And I'm part about your story that got me where I felt what you were going through, because you're kind of hiding this breaking down. Talk about when you skipped breakfast, when your legs were too heavy. You used your, was it your rifle?
Yeah, I had to use my rifle to get myself out of that kneeling position.
Share that with everybody, what it's like to be, because even with cancer, you're hiding. There's this false self that you're putting in front of everybody while you're falling apart inside. I want you to share that part of your story with them. It's incredible.
Yeah, the week leading up to it, I was stationed at Fort Drum. It was up in the northern part of upstate New York, 30 miles south of the Canadian border. This is in February, so right in the middle of the hardest part of the winter. So it's negative 20 degrees outside. So we're used to the cold weather. We're always out in it because that's what we do. We're the infantry, 10th Mountain. But for me, my hands were always cold and my feet were always cold, even whenever we were inside, even after we had been in and had a hot shower. And that week leading up to it, I was to the point where I couldn't hold on to the pull-up bar, or I couldn't. The day before I actually woke up paralyzed, I was trying to run and my legs just would not really go. And everybody's kind of looking at me out of the corner of their eye because they're like, well, why is he falling out of the run? He doesn't, why is he doing this? And I was able to get through the exercise that morning. And when I went back to take a shower, like you're saying, I kept looking for frostbite on my hands and feet, and I couldn't. I tried to tie my boots and put on my uniform, and that's something as a soldier that you can do without thinking. It took me 10 minutes to just try to get my socks on and tie my boots, and it looked like a drunk monkey, tried to tie them for me. I couldn't get them on there. And when I tried to stand back up, I still couldn't do that. I literally had to push myself up. And then when I was trying to walk to go get breakfast, like you said, I realized that I was not going to have enough time to do that. I would be lucky if I had enough time just to get to the next formation. So I'm literally trying to, kind of use my legs to create momentum to move forward, to create the next step, like overstuffed potato sacks, to get myself there. And I'm hoping that nobody can see me, and I'm hoping that nobody sees that I'm really, in a bad state. And luckily for the rest of the day, we didn't have a lot of physically demanding things to do. We did a lot of briefing, a lot of paperwork, and a lot of sort of meetings. And we had that weekend off. So I got really lucky in that respect. But yeah, you don't want to appear to be weak. You don't want to appear to be injured, especially in the military.
So even while you are injured, even while something's wrong. I mean, I would have thought, did somebody drug my food? There's a lot of things that would have went through my mind before I ever thought that I was leading up to where you were paralyzed the next day, right?
Yeah, after that night, I told myself if I just get some sleep and maybe if I can hit the gym really hard. It'll help me get, recovered. And the next morning I woke up and I tried to roll my body out of bed and my neck would move, but the rest of my body wouldn't. And at first I just thought, oh, well, I'm just really sore. But quickly, after a couple of minutes, I realized that this is something really serious and I'm not going to be able to, walk it off or just drink some water and hope to get beyond it. And that's when my worst fears were realized.
Wow. So talk about the operating table, surgery.
Oh, the surgery. Yeah, I
I'm
hadn't been.
every minute I'm allowed with you.
Absolutely. They rushed me in. I hadn't been in the hospital since I, was born. I'd had bumps and bruises and stitches, but never something that required this much work before. I get ready to go into the operating table, and there's a dozen people there waiting for me outside the room. And I'm like, what the hell are you guys all doing here? They're like, we're here for you, which didn't make me feel any better, because if there's that many people, then it's something really bad. And they say, listen, just get underneath there, get under the anesthesia, and think about recovering after it. So I count down from 100. I get to about 98, and I feel this very cold, dark presence. And that's all I can see is darkness and cold. And then the next thing I know, I wake up, I'm in the ICU, and the nurse says, oh, welcome back to the land of the living, Mr. Anderson. And I don't really know what she means. And they got me in a neck brace, and I'm still paralyzed, and they've got, my throat is just raw from all the tubes they've had down my throat. And then later on that day, the surgeon comes in, and he sits down at the foot of my bed, and he says, well, you had us worried for a little bit. And I'm trying to talk, but my voice is raw. He's like, don't worry about talking. He said, you had us worried because we lost you a couple of times. You flatlined on us. You were dead. He's like, but, consider yourself lucky. You came back and you have a second chance. So, and I'm still trying to process what has just happened over the last 24 hours, waking up like this, being sent to the hospital, trying to figure out what the hell's going on. And then to have that, I just kind of piled that information on with the rest of the information that I hadn't been able to process yet. So it was a big thing to hear.
Talk about when you started to realize your life changed for the better, that all of this was, and we're going to do it in a short period of time, but all of this adversity in your life ended up becoming something that would transform your whole life to where you were going to be making such an impact and be such a motivation and inspiration for other men, and I believe women too. Talk about when and how it unfolded and where you realized it.
It was much like you, where I went through almost 4 months of just being completely paralyzed from the neck down, lying in a bed, angry, regretful, upset about everything. And I was mad at everyone around me. But the person that I was most mad at was myself, because I felt like the universe was slapping me in the face and essentially telling me, okay, we gave you 40 years to do all this stuff with your life, and you have all this potential that you didn't actualize. And because you haven't worked on it or acted on it, we're going to take it from you.
That's a very normal feeling punished.
That's exactly what it was. I had that why me, and I'm a good person. But after 3 months of just anger, I realized that it wasn't making me better. It wasn't serving me. It wasn't making me get over this. So like yourself, I went to the other end of the spectrum. And anger is one end of the spectrum. The other end of the spectrum is love. But for me, being grateful was the big thing that changed my life. And understand that gratitude is something that you don't get to cherry pick what you're grateful for. You have to be grateful for whatever is going on at that moment. And so once I took myself out of the equation and stopped complaining about myself, I realized that if I had been deployed while this happened, that there may have been other people that might have get injured, right?
Absolutely.
And once I thought about that, I realized that there might have been a helicopter shot down. I might have had guys on my team that were killed trying to save me. Once I was able to do that for the first time in months, I was able to literally just, take a breath, almost smile and say that, okay, I can hang my hat on that. I can build on that. That's a cornerstone that I can actually start to rebuild from. And like yourself, once I started seeing my adversity as a gift, that's whenever things that were very miraculous started to happen in my life.
I wrote in my book, Grateful Heart.
Oh, this book? I love this book. It's amazing.
Thank you.
No,
I
thank
wrote
you.
about what you're talking about.
Hmm.
I was so mad.
Hmm.
I was like, staph infection, everything that could go wrong in my mind. I thought being cheated on by, my boyfriend was cheating with a girlfriend while I'm going through the bilateral mastectomy. It's like, what? Who does that kind of stuff,
Yeah,
right?
that's brutal. I know.
How can anybody climb out of this? So I had to force myself to be grateful for the things you wouldn't ordinarily be thankful for. The flex straw,
Hmm.
the pillow that I was sleeping on,
Yeah,
just the sheets.
that's
Just
it.
the littlest things.
That's
And
exactly it.
Call from Melanie Kaufman.
I am just so, I can relate to you 100%.
Yeah,
So everybody, I brought Marcus on here because I want people to understand something slowly, that our adversities and what we're going through, we can't see all of what we're going to get, the gift later on, which is
right.
so important, that we all are patient with ourselves and that we have self-compassion and let ourselves heal and go through this whole process of anger, depression, denial, all of it.
Acceptance, exactly.
And denial shows up in many different ways. We act like nothing's wrong and we bury it and stuff it all inside. And eventually it's going to erupt like a volcano. And all of the anger that we've been holding inside and the pretty face, there's no way to hide tears of pain of your life being taken from you and having to figure out a new way of life and coming out to where I am right now. It's been since 2006. The journey has been that long for me.
Wow.
And it started for you in, let's see, when was it? What year?
2012.
Okay. So
it's been a while.
We have to wait. We have to be patient with ourselves. Marcus, I know you got to get going. I'm going to have you on again because
that sounds great.
I learn so much from you every time we talk. And thank you so much.
Thank you. I learned so much from talking to you as well. And I really enjoyed our time and I look forward to our next engagement.
Me too. Thank you.
Okay. Have a great day. I'll see you.
Bye.